Well, hello everybody. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well. Just waiting to make sure one more person gets signed in, and we'll begin here shortly. All right. Well, we have a lot of material to cover in the hour, so I'd like to begin. This is the basic AutoTag training webinar. Today is Wednesday, February 14th, 2018. My name is Eric Johnson, and I am a technical support engineer here at Windward Studios. You may have interacted with me through help desk tickets as I've been here for a few months now. Okay, you may have noticed that when you logged into the GoToMeeting webinar, you have a toolbar. The arrow that you see on the screen is pointing to where you raise your hand. That's the raise your hand icon. Anytime during the webinar you have a question or are experiencing any technical difficulties, please feel free to click that button to ask your question or to notify me of anything that's wrong. The only thing is that the prompts that I have for questions in chat are on my other screen, so I may not see them immediately. I usually wait till the end of the webinar to answer any questions, but I will try to keep an eye on that screen now and again, just in case you do have a question. Okay, again, this is the basic introduction to AutoTag. We assume that you haven't used AutoTag. Maybe you've installed it, but you haven't built any templates yet. You don't know too much about the interface or how to add tags to your documents, whether they're Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint, or Word documents. So we'll go over the very basic, the fundamental things to do with AutoTag. Next week, there's an intermediate training webinar scheduled that will cover more advanced features, but today we'll go over the basics. So for the machine I'm working on today, using Windows 10 operating system, which is 64-bit, and I'm also using Office 2016, which is also 64-bit. It's okay to use 32 or 64-bit. We recommend using 64-bit as this allows you to utilize all the memory on your machine. So this helps you when you're building templates and gathering data. Sometimes you're pulling in a lot of data and that requires a lot of memory. I think 32-bit only allows you 2 gigs of memory. 64 can utilize all you have on your hardware. And the version of AutoTag I'm using is 15.2.184.0. There was a release the other day, 15.2.197.0, and you can find that on our windward.net website under the downloads page. Okay. I want to give you a high-level overview of what we'll be discussing today. We'll take a look at what's within the AutoTag and AutoTag Manager tabs. We'll create a template using the ForEach and out tags to create a couple of lists. The ForEach and out tags being the most popular tags that you'll use. We'll go over input parameters, or what we consider variables, which you can use to filter before you generate the output. We'll go over a couple of data source wizards, specifically the SQL and XML. We'll cover how to generate a report and how to get some help. Well, we're first going to look at what's in the AutoTag Manager tab. You're not going to access this tab that often. It just kind of gets your environment set up. The data source button is where you will connect to your different data, whether it's JSON, SQL, XML. We'll go over the find and replace tool. We'll discuss the different things that you can locate within the About button. We'll show you the license field. So if you're using a temporary key and you want to update it to a permanent key, this is where you'll be able to make that update. And we'll get into samples and other tutorials during the webinar. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the AutoTag Manager tab. I'm going to go ahead and open up a blank Word document. And up here in the menu ribbon, here's the AutoTag tab and the AutoTag Manager tab. We're going to look at the AutoTag Manager tab right now. And so within there, there's a few different sections. Within the data section is the data sources. This is where you will connect to your data. Again, if you're using SQL, XML, JSON, or OData, these being the 4 types of data sources that we support. There's also the pods. I may try to get into this a little at the end of the webinar if we have time, but this is a very useful tool with AutoTag. It allows you to create reusable content. So if you have footers or headers that you commonly use in your templates, instead of having to go and recreate those each and every time, the pods, you can save off certain sections, headers, footers, or even content that's used frequently in your template, and then just drag and drop that into your template when you wanted to use it. These pods really help on the speed of getting templates up and running. Oh, wait one moment. Seems like I have a private message to do start the session. Yes. I'm going to reply. Okay, seems we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. *1.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, wondering, can you guys hear me now? Mohammed, if you can hear me, please let me know through the question and answer section. Okay, yes, great. Sorry about that. Not sure what all that was about. I'm going to go ahead and restart a lot of this just since you guys weren't able to see what was going on. Sorry about this. Not sure what happened. But once we get going again, let's go ahead. All right. So let me just get started from this point. The beginning was just an introduction. I do see that Mohammed does know how to ask questions. There is, if anyone else has questions and is unfamiliar with this, there is a raise your hand icon that you can use to ask questions. So if you do have any during the webinar, please feel free to speak up. I will. This question section is on my other screen, so I don't see it that often, but I am making a habit of looking at it just in case there is any problems. But if you have any technical difficulties or anything come up, please raise your hand and let me know what's going on. Sorry about how this has started. Not sure why the recording didn't begin, but see if we can get going now. All right. So again, this is the basic introduction to AutoTag. We assume that you haven't used AutoTag. Maybe you've installed it, but you probably haven't built any templates. You don't know too much about the interface or how to add tags to your document. So we're going to be going over the very basics today, the fundamental things to do with AutoTag. Next week, there's an intermediate training webinar scheduled, which will cover more advanced features. But today, we'll be focusing on the basics. The machine I'm working on is Windows 10 operating system, which is 64-bit. And I'm also using Office 64-bit. It's okay to use 32 or 64. We recommend using 64-bit, which allows you to utilize all the memory on your machine when building a template and gathering data, because sometimes you're pulling in a lot of data and it requires a lot of memory. So using 64-bit, you can utilize all you have on your hardware. I think 32-bit only allows you 2 gigs of memory. And the version of AutoTag I'm using is 15.2.184.0. There was a release that came out, 15.2.197.0. You can go, if you would like to update to this version, you can go to windward.net and go to our downloads page. And there you can download the latest version that we're offering. All right, so I want to give you a high-level overview of what we'll be discussing today. We'll take a look at what's within the AutoTag and AutoTag Manager tabs. We'll create a template using the ForEach and Alt tags to create a couple of lists. These ForEach and Alt tags being the most popular tags that you'll use. We'll go over input parameters, or what we consider variables, which are used to filter before you generate the output. We'll go over a couple data source wizards, specifically SQL and XML. We'll cover how to generate a document and how to get some help. So we're first going to look at what's in the AutoTag Manager tab. You're not going to access this tab that often. It just kind of gets your environment set up. But within this AutoTag Manager tab, there is the data source button, and this is what you'll use to connect to your different data. We'll go over the find and replace tool. We'll discuss the about button, how to update your license key through this license button. So if you're using a temporary key and you want to update it to your permanent key, you'll use the license button. And we'll go over where to get some samples and other tutorials. So let's go ahead and begin by showing you the AutoTag Manager tab. So I'm going to open up a Word document. Just going to open up a blank one. Okay. When you install AutoTag, there's two tabs within this menu ribbon that gets installed. There's the AutoTag tab and the AutoTag Manager tab. Well, we'll be discussing this AutoTag Manager tab first. So over here in the data section is your data sources button. This is what you'll use to connect to your different types of data, whether it's JSON, XML, SQL, or OData. Then there's the pod section. This is a really good feature of AutoTag. It allows you to create reusable content. So if your templates have the same header and footer, you can use pods to create those headers and footers, or even content that you use frequently. You can create pods and then just drag and drop those sections into the template, and with all the styling, with all the setup, everything that you set up in that pod, when you bring it into the new template, is set up the exact same way. So you don't have to go through and rearrange it, restyle it, make it fit. However it was saved is how it's brought in. Another thing within the data section is the generate code button. This is handy for the developer types. It shows you how to generate code from our Windward engine based on the template that's open right now. So if you're using the .NET, Java, or RESTful engine, it shows you the code and how to reference the template and generate the output. Okay, over in the tools section, there's this find and replace button. I think it's a very handy button, so I'm going to go ahead and open it and show you a little more about it. So it opened on my other monitor, so I'm just going to drag it in here. So this is an easy way to update all the tags in your template at once or based upon specific tags. So if you have already created a document and the name of your data source wasn't as informative, wasn't as clear as you like it to be, you could come in here and put the name of the database, the data connection, because that's what we're finding, and we can put it in to be changed to. And then you have an option down here. You can either look throughout the whole template to make this change, or if, as I mentioned a second ago, we were just looking at data sources, we could we can have this set. But if we wanted to change something like a nickname, we could change that. And we can do this for all the tags, or we can do this for specific tags. Say you only want to change it for the alt tag. So this is a really good way that AutoTag gives you to change, to find and change things within your template, data sources, alt tags, anything that's set up. So this is a very handy tool. Okay, next I'd like to discuss is the About button. So this About button gives a lot of information. It shows you what version you're using. So I'm using version 15.2.184.0. It shows you the license I'm valid for. I'm using a license that is valid for 16. If all licenses are good through the version that you have listed. So if I was on 15, if this said 15 and I was to update to 16 when we release that, which will be coming out soon, you would have to go in here and update your license. Well, you wouldn't go in here, you would go into the license section to update your license. But this lets you know that the license that I'm presently using is valid through 16. It also lets you know when the license expires. This one expires July 30th, 2018. Here, my license is valid to be run on 50 systems. Yours may not be that. I'm using a super key, so my information may be a little different from yours. And the other thing I want to point out is this IP address. So this section right here lets you know all the people who are using this license key at the time you click the About button. I'm the only one using this key, so it's just me. But if there was other people within your network who are using the same license, you could see if there are other people using it at the same time through this About pop-up. Okay, I also want to discuss the license button. It opened on the other screen. Let me just drag it over. So through the license button, this is where you'll enter your license key. So say if you're using a temporary key and you need to update it to the permanent key, or if you've made a major update from like one version to the next, example 14 to 15, you'll need to come into this section, delete the old key, and paste in the new one. And that's how you update your license key for AutoTag. Okay, I'd like to move on to the Getting Started Guide section. Today, watching the webinar is the best first step at learning AutoTag. Second step is going to our Windward tutor. I'm going to go ahead and click this, and this gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do something. Again, it's opening in my other screen. I'm just going to pull it over so everyone can see it more clearly. So once you open this up, you'll have a bunch of different topics you can choose from. I'm going to go ahead and select AutoTag Basics. And then it also gives you a bunch of subtopics, insert and tags, more information about the ForEach tag, and access and sample templates. So for today, right now, I'm going to go ahead and click on this Insert in a Tag link. And this will open up a tutor that will walk you through insert in a tag. And so we give you the objectives, the procedures written out on how to do each step. And we also give you a nice gift. And all these green buttons, if you click Show Me How, we give you a nice little gift to show you what we're trying to demonstrate to you in the words with a visual. So very handy. Okay, the other thing I like to point out is the sample button right here. This opens up the Getting Started Guide. Here you'll find step-by-step tutorials, sample templates. There's an additional link down here, and this additional link contains some SQL and XML tutorials. We will be including tag tutorials for JSON, but we aren't fully there yet. But for right now, I would like to focus on the tag tutorials for SQL. So for any tag that you can utilize in AutoTag, we have a sample. So we have a sample to show you how to do bookmark tags, chart examples, conditional formatting, ForEach tags, if tags, import tags, link tags, alt tags. So all the tags that you can utilize within AutoTag, we have a tutorial for you. So I'm going to go ahead and show you one. This is the if tag. So here's step-by-step procedures on how to use the if tag, the else tag. The cool thing about this is that it's connected to our Northwind SQL Server database. So you can actually generate output from these SQL samples. So we kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. Here's an if tag, if, end if, and then we also show in this example how to utilize it with an else. So this is very good, handy way to go back and look at samples that we already built. So if you're having trouble with your template and you're not, and the if tag is not working correctly, you can come back to these samples and preview how we had it set up, and again, generate the output, because this is connected to our public database. Okay, so that is the AutoTag Manager tab. Next, we're going to go over the AutoTag tab. Here's where you'll actually create the template using ForEach tags, alt tags, and other types of tags. Basically, I'll show you how to select the tag, how to insert using wizards for SQL and XPath, how to create input parameters, and how to pull in your data using the data bin and generating output. Okay, for an overview of what a ForEach tag is, ForEach tag does three things. One, it fetches a set of data or specific data that you want to utilize within your data source. Second, it can repeat that data through an iterative loop. For example, if you're creating a list. And third, it repeats the content between the beginning and ending for each tag. The ending for each tag tells AutoTag when to stop repeating content with each iteration of the loop. This for each tag you'll probably use regularly when creating templates. Okay, the most common tag is the alt tag, and alt tag is basically short for output. When you're ready to display a number, an image, text, anything like that, you'll use an alt tag. Again, tags are simply just placeholders for your data. The ForEach tag doesn't display information. It gathers data that you want to use, loops through the data, and repeats the contents between the tags. This alt tag actually displays the data that you want your users to see. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to a Word document and start showing you how to set up a template. So I'm going to open Word. Start off with a blank document. So the first thing to do when creating a template is to connect to the data. So under the AutoTag Manager tab, I'm going to go ahead and click this data source button, which opens up the connection editor. Over here on the right, I have not connected to anything, so my active connection is empty. But we also do hold recent inactives. So if you already connected to a data source, you can possibly you could come over here and choose something from the recent inactive and connect to it. But for today, I'm going to show you how to create a new data source. So I'm going to go ahead and click this New tab. All right, there's a bunch of different type of data connections that you can connect with. You can connect to Salesforce, SharePoint list. You can connect to JSON, OData, XML. You can also connect to SQL. Here, I have a bunch of different SQL options. You may not have all these initially. I do have these because I've been assisting other customers with this template. But if you do need a different driver, depending on the SQL environment that you're using, you can go to our wiki, and there it has step-by-step instructions on installing different drivers and obtaining the proper drivers to use. For today, I'm going to connect to our public Northwind SQL server. So I'm going to select this last option, SQL Server Database. Now, first thing that you do when you create a new data connection is give it a nickname. I'm going to call this one Northwind SQL because we're connecting to the Northwind database, and it's an SQL database, so I'm making it as descriptive as I can. One thing to note when setting up nicknames, there can't be any spaces in the nickname. Next thing you'll do is set up the server. The server I'm connecting today is mssql.windward.net. Again, the server is open to the public. Instead of selecting the database right now, I'm going to move over to this credential center, and I'm going to enter in the credentials to connect to this server. This is open to the public. The username is demo, and the password is also demo. There's other things that can be set up with these connections. You can display different types of tables, users, user-owned, and user and system. Hovering over them can give you an idea of what the differences are. For today, I am just going to connect to user. There's also this read-in metadata. It's checked by default. There's only a few times that you don't want to pull in all your metadata from your database schema, but this is a great option to keep checked. Okay, now that I've entered in my credentials, I need to select the database that I want to utilize. So as the login credentials are selected, I should be able to use this drop down, and these are all the databases within this server that I have, based on these credentials, I can access. So I've mentioned that we're using the Northwind database. I'm going to scroll down and select that. So down here is the connection string. You can actually enter this in manually by checking this box. If your DBA has provided you this information, you don't have to go through this other steps. If your DBA has provided, you could just click this use connection string and enter in the value right there. There's also this root directory. This is for using relative paths within your tags. So if you're referencing sub-templates or images that are on a shared network, you can provide the root directory for AutoTag to use to locate those sub-templates or images. And I'm not going to be using any of that. All I needed was the nickname, server, database, and my credentials. I have those entered. So let's test and see if I have a connection. So down here, there's a test button, and there's a message for me. Data source test succeeded. Please click connect, update, or add to save your changes. So this lets me know that I am able to connect to this database based on these credentials. So now I'm going to go ahead and add it. And when I add it, you'll notice it's now listed here in the active section. So that's the active connection that is set up for this template. All right, I'm connected to the Northwind database. So I'm going to go ahead and close the connection editor. All right, so when I did that, maybe you've noticed over here on the right, AutoTag will automatically show you the database schema. Here, based on the information I entered, here are all the tables and views that I have access to. Stored procedures are not listed here under the data bin. We'll see them in a little bit in the data tree, but for the data bin, these are the tables and views that I have access to. So let's go ahead and create a table and get this template started. So I'm going to go over here. Since we're connected to the data, I'm going to click on Insert, choose a table, and for this example, I'm going to create a table that's 3 columns by 2 rows. So now I need to use AutoTag to start tagging up my document. So I've decided for this one that I'm going to use the categories table. So I'm going to open this, and within the categories table, I have a couple of columns: category ID, category name, description, and picture. So for this table, I would like to only display right now the category name, description, and picture. Okay. Now that we have the header row created, we need to supply data from the categories table into the template. So I'm going to go ahead and select right under the category name column, and then I'm going to go over to the AutoTag tab. That's the tag we're starting to discuss now. The AutoTag was to set it up. The AutoTag starts setting up, creating the template. So I'm in the AutoTag tab, and I'm going to go to tags. Now, these are all the tags that you can utilize within your template, and if you hover over any of them, it can give you a short description. I'm going to go ahead and select the ForEach tag, and this tag will be added wherever I had my cursor or the cursor is blinking. So initially it was right here under the category name, so that's why this ForEach tag is right there. So I want to go ahead and highlight this ForEach tag and point out a few things. So over here in this ForEach tag properties section, you'll notice a nickname and variable. Before I get into those, I just want to point out that selecting a tag, you can always tell what tag you're working on based upon the properties that you see here. So I'm on the ForEach tag, and you can see up here, this is the ForEach tag properties. So by default, AutoTag provides you with a variable name for the tag. They've called it var name1. I'm going to go ahead and change this to something that makes more sense to me. And since we're dealing with categories, I'm going to call this var categories. So this variable is the name that AutoTag uses to reference this tag. Do you want to update all your tags that reference variable var name1? I don't have any. I only have this one, so I'm just going to say no. Okay. So to make it easier to read your template, you can assign a nickname to this ForEach tag. So I'm going to go up here and assign it a nickname. I'm going to, since we're dealing with categories, I'm going to call this the categories. And when I come off here, that each tag has now changed to categories. So this is a way to help me understand what I'm referring to through these by setting nicknames. All right, now that we've gave it a nickname and set a variable, now let's go ahead and select the data to use with this ForEach tag. And so there's a shortcut in the tags properties section up here called data tree, which we can use to select the data to use for this ForEach tag. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. And here is a list of all the tables, views, and the stored procedures that we had before. The tables and views that we see over here in the data bin, but also here are the stored procedures that we have access to. For today's example, we're using categories, so I'm just going to go ahead and select the whole category section. So here, if I hover over, you can see that I am selecting the category ID, name, category name, description, and picture from the categories table. Let's see what we're actually returning for data. So there is this preview button that I use often, which can always help you see what data that you're working with. So with categories highlighted, I'm going to go ahead and click preview to ensure what is happening. And so for this ForEach loop, I am bringing back the category ID, category name, description, and picture. And there are 8 records here that are being returned. Again, I use this preview quite often to make sure I'm selecting the correct data that I want to see before I generate the output. So the ForEach tag is getting the data that I want to utilize. Now, to display the data, we'll use an alt tag. So I'll place my cursor right after the ForEach tag, go up here to the tags, and this time select an alt tag. Now I need to select what data needs to be displayed in this alt. Oops, sorry, let me undo that. I had that selected. I put the cursor next to the categories. Go ahead, because before I was on it, and that's why I changed it. But here I'm going to be next to it. Choose out, and here is the alt tag. So now I need to select the data. I'm going to go up here to the data tree. And here you'll notice this is a little different. By default, AutoTag knows that you're referencing a ForEach tag. So you see the var categories that was the variable name, and all the data for the ForEach tag. There's also the option to select your table and views is collapsed by default, as you don't want to pull your data directly from your table. If you did this instead of the ForEach tag, you would just repeat the first record in the row however many times as it loops through the data. So you want to reference your ForEach tag. So I'm going to go ahead and select category name. And with that selected, click preview. I always want to make sure I'm getting what I'm looking for. And this is the beverages. So yes, I am getting the data that I would like. Okay, we're now going to add an alt tag for the description. Click under the description column, go over to tags, select alt. And just like the category name, then I select the alt tag, go up here in the tag properties to the data tree. And this time we're going to display the description. So I'm selecting the description there. Last one to set up is the picture column. Back to the tags button, select the alt tag. Select the alt tag that's in the template now. Click the data tree and choose picture. All right, almost done. Last thing we need to do is we need to add the end ForEach tag to go with this ForEach tag. The end ForEach tag tells AutoTag when to stop looping through the content between the beginning and ending tags. So whenever you add a table, you want to put the end ForEach tag outside of the table. It's logical to put it right after the last alt tag in the table, but in actuality, so you don't create a blank row at the end of your list, you want to put it outside the table. So I'm going to, with my cursor there, go back up to the tag and select end ForEach. And this again tells AutoTag when to stop looping through your data, when to stop displaying the category name, the description, and the picture each time. Okay, and a cool thing about AutoTag, it supports about 90% of Word's functionality. We don't support word art, so we don't suggest using it in your templates. If your designer has created logos or images, you can use import tags to bring those in. Since we're using Word, we can style the table any way we want. So I'm gonna go ahead up here in the designs. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep the header row. Banded rows are okay. I don't need a first column, so I'm gonna uncheck that. Let's go ahead and give this a style as well. This stands out pretty well. So there it is. This is how easy I can style my table. So let's go ahead and generate the output so you can see how this looks. I'll go to AutoTag, and here is the output button. You could either click this button up here or select this drop down. When you do, you have a couple of different types of output that you can generate to. You can go docx, you can generate a PDF, HTML, printer, rich type format output. Excel, XLSX, and PowerPoint PPTX are grayed out because they don't cross platforms. You'd actually have to use Excel or PowerPoint for outputs of these types. The default is docx, so I'm going to go ahead and create a docx output. It asks me to save. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I'm going to save it to my desktop. Category name is fine. All right. So let's go ahead and compare the output. I'm going to close the AutoTag data bin. Over here on the left is the template, and over here on the right is the output. One thing you'll notice is the picture is not showing the image. It's just showing the raw database, the raw data from the database. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to correct this. I'm going to go close this for a minute, reopen this. I'm going to go select this picture alt tag. Again, you can tell selecting the alt tag by the alt tag properties. So from within here, with the picture selected, I'm going to go ahead and click this type. And you can display different types of data here: date, hex template number, PDF template, TXT. But for picture, it's a bit60 format. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. When I do, you notice that this changes to an icon. And I can change the size of this by using this drop down up here. Can change the size to be specific height, specific width, full width. I'm going to go ahead and choose specific width for this example. Okay, before generating the output, let's look at the preview. Again, I like to check the preview often to make sure I'm returning what I'm looking for. When I click it, yes, there we go. We got an image. So, yep, this is exactly what I want to see. So let's go ahead and click output again to see what we get this time. Yes to save. I'm going to split the screen. And here this time you can see that we have the picture instead of the raw data. So that's creating a simple table using a ForEach tag and a few different alt tags. Next thing I'd like to point out is that when you connect to a data source, you don't need to connect to just one. You can connect to multiple data sources as well as different types. You may not do this that often, but if you did have a need, we do give you the ability. So I'm going to go ahead and add some text here to separate the top table from what we just created, the top table we just created, to what we're going to be creating next. So here I'm going to add XML table. So here we're going to be adding the XML table. So back to the AutoTag Manager tab, and you'll see there's a green circle on the data sources button. This lets you know that you're connected to a data source. So I'm going to go ahead and open the data sources connection editor. you'll see that we are already connected to the North1 SQL database. But let's go ahead and create a new connection for our XML. So I'm going to click the new one up here. And down here, I'm going to select XPath 2.0. So XPath 2.0 gives you the latest and greatest functions compared to XPath 1. So I want to use the latest and greatest. First thing to do is I'm going to provide a nickname. So this one will also connect to the Northwind database. But this time we'll connect to the XML. Just remember, no spaces. So over here in the XML file URL, you can either type in the URL or browse to a file by clicking on this folder icon. And I was in something just recently, but normally your system would open up to where I'm getting you right now. Okay, so when you install AutoTag, you get within the Documents folder, the AutoTag and the Data and Sample Templates folder. I'm going to go ahead and select this templates. Go down here, and instead of XML files, I'm going to do Show All. So we have tons of Word sample templates for you. When you install AutoTag, there's a little over 200 sample templates that are installed. We're cleaning these up all the time. So there's a long list of example sample templates you can use. We also do provide Excel templates, pod templates, PowerPoint, and tag templates. But as we're going to be connecting to XML data, I'm going to go back to the AutoTag folder and select data. Okay, this time I'm looking for the Northwind XML. Scroll down a little and select that. Open it. Okay, once selected, I can add a protocol. If I wanted to, I could add a schema. I'm not going to do that today, so let's just go ahead and test. Does say I tested successfully, so let's go ahead and add it. Now we have two data sources. We have the SQL and the Northwind XML, which is XPath 2.0. You can connect to as many data sources as you like. I have heard of up to 9 XML files being referenced at once, but based upon your use of the template, you can set up one or multiple connections. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now this time you'll notice the data bin looks a little different. We still have tables and views from the Northwind SQL data connection, but now you'll see the parent and child nodes from the Northwind XML data file. Okay, there's another option to make things easier for you. Let's say you need all of the nodes from this employee's parent node. So what you can do is you can select this, drag and drop it over to the template. And when I do this, you can see it's selecting all the nodes for me within the employee's parent node. I don't need all these right now, so I'm going to deselect all. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and choose the last name, first name. You can reorder these, put the first name before the last name. I'm also going to select the hire date, and let's go with a country. So when I click OK, AutoTag creates the table for you, all with the ForEach tags, the out tags, and the end for each tags. So let's go ahead and style this a little. Just like the top one, I'm gonna add some spaces here. And with this table selector, I'm gonna go ahead and go up to design. Same thing as the first one, I'll leave out the first column and give it a style. All right, and see, just like that, just like the top one, dragging a node into the template creates the table, and we can style it in any way we want. So let's go actually make sure we're pulling the data we want to see. So I'm going to go ahead and select this ForEach tag, go back to the AutoTag, and choose Preview. So this preview looks a lot different from the SQL preview because this is XML nodes as opposed to table columns that are formatted a specific way. But I can collapse each one of these to see that there are multiple employee records being referred to. Now let's go ahead and click the first name, select it, preview it. All right, Nancy, good. So it looks like we're getting the information that we want. Now that it's styled and I feel confident that we're returning the data, I'm gonna go ahead and generate the output to see what it looks like. This time, I'll go ahead and just create a PDF this time. Showed up on my other screen, so let me bring it in here. Split the screen. Close the data bin. And here's the second table. One thing you may notice is the hire date. This is in the raw data format. Let me show you how to correct that. I'm going to close this, go back here, select the hire date, go up to the AutoTag properties, and click the Format Data button. This is similar to Excel style that you may be familiar with. I'm going to go ahead and select date, choose this long date, apply it, close. Let's go ahead and take a look, see what we're getting. Select the hire date, preview. Okay, so this time we formatted it to look the way we want. So let's go ahead and close this. And I'll put it one more time. Okay, and here in the output, down at the bottom, you can see that the date is now formatted to how we preferred. All right. Sorry, we're getting close here to the end. It's almost the top of the hour. It's 8:57. I'm sorry it went a little long to begin with. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm going to try to get through these last couple of sections somewhat quickly just so you can see this filtering being demonstrated. I'll go back here to the template. So in the AutoTag tab, this is input parameters, and this is where we can define parameters. So I'm going to go ahead and add one. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it category. And by default, this is required, and that's fine. I'm going to give it a default value as well. So let's go ahead and choose beverages. Okay. Because it is required, I just want to give an option that there is something already selected by default. And you can, the variables can be of different types as well. You can have currency, date, integer, number, text, or select. And select gives you an AutoTag drop-down list to choose the value that you want to choose from. For this example, we're going to go ahead and go with text. So I have my name and default. I'm going to go ahead and add it. All right. Oh, sorry, I meant save. Let me go back in. I don't need this second one. So now that's everything we need. Save. Just double check it one more time. Okay, good. Categories, text, that's all we need. Now, how do we utilize this input parameter, filter out data? So I'm going to go ahead and select this categories for each tag. And then up above it is this wizards button within the tag properties. I'm going to go ahead and select it to open up the SQL wizard. And here, this left side has all the tables and views that we have access to. In the center, here's the list of the columns. This is what we're gathering the data for through the ForEach tag. Below this is the sort section. So say, what if I want to sort my results by category name? All you would have to do is go over here to the category name, select, and drag it down here. Now, when I did that, over here on the right side is a preview of the data that's being displayed. And as you can see right now, category name is being alphabetized A to Z. So if I left click on this sort, I can go ahead and change it to Z, sort Z to A. And as you can see, it was automatically sorted for me. Okay, this filter section is also, as we know it by, is the SQL where clause. This is used to filter out data using the input parameter that we just created. So to get this set up, I'm going to go ahead and click here to add a group and click here to add a filter. We need to select how we want to filter by. So I'm going to click here to select the node, and let's filter by category name. Okay, the filtering right now is set to equal to. We can click on the equal to, and you have different options to filter by: starts with, contains, like, does not start with, equal to, and such. I'm going to leave it as equal to. And then over here, I'm going to click here to set the value and use this drop down. And here is the parameter, the input parameter that we created. There's only one that we created, so there's only one listed. I'm going to go ahead and select it. All right, and over here in the data pane, we are only showing one record, as we listed that one record to have as we set the input parameter to have a default to beverages. So we're only displaying that. And this where clause, this bottom section is pretty cool as well. You can't edit it, it's grayed out. You can update this in the tag editor. I just wanted to point out that this is the select statement. Again, we'll show updating this through the tag editor in the intermediate training. But we are now dynamically adding the where clause for the categories input parameter within AutoTag. And you can tell this by the $ squiggly name category. This is how we define categories. So kind of cool. Helps you learn SQL statements just by dragging and dropping into these fields. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now what happens when we generate the output? I'm going to click Output. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and make this one a docx output. Say yes. And here we're prompted for a variable. So I'm going to change it up a little. The food, choose that as a category, click OK. Okay, now the output is showing beverages records only for categories names that are seafood. All right. It's 9:04. I think I can get by this last part in a couple of moments. We have one last thing I want to kind of go over, and then I can answer any questions if you have any. Sorry, this went over a little, but I want to just briefly show you this one. So we showed you filtering dynamically, but what it do this in this SQL table using input parameters, What happens if we want to filter statically? So I'm going to go ahead and select this ForEach tag. And then I'm going to go up here, like the last one, and click on this wizards button. So this is the XPath wizard. It has a different look simply because we're using XPath. At the bottom, where you'll notice our XPath is being generated dynamically, just like SQL. Over here is the nodes. It's not like the column section that SQL has. This is XML, so we see the nodes. So what if we want to add a sort? We would just go over here, click and add a sort by. And let's say we want to sort by first name. So we can select first name, click OK. And now the first names are sorted over here. If we wanted to change it to descending, we could switch this up. And now first name is sorted in descending order. So that's how adding a sort is. How do we filter statically? To do that, you would go over here, click here to add a group. Click here to add a condition. Click here to select the node. And so this time, let's go ahead and filter by country. Say we only want to display certain records based on country. I do want it equal to. We could choose another option, but I'm going to leave it equal to. And here, click here to set a value. This time we're going to filter statically, so I'm going to go ahead and enter UK. So we're only going to display those records where the country equals UK. Click OK. Let's generate the output. You wish to save the document? Yes. Seafood, let's change it up this time. Let's choose produce. Right. Remember, it's the last one you used. Click OK. Split the screen. And here we go. Top one only showing produce. The second one is only displaying those records where the country is UK. All right, sorry, I had to go through that a little quick, but I wanted to make sure I pointed out both static and dynamic filtering. Let's go back to this. We've talked about the AutoTag. We talked about SQL and XML wizards, sorting, ascending, sorting by ascending and descending order, dynamic filters, the difference between XPath and SQL, and adding static filters. Showed you input parameters, allow users to add input just before generating output. Showed you how to set up a default value and how to reference that parameter in a tag. That was the AutoTag basic training webinar. If you're still on here, I would strongly suggest making a screen print of this slide. This is a very handy slide. It contains a lot of information. So these are the resources that you can utilize. You can go to our wiki, windward.net, for our knowledge base. We're constantly updating the wiki. We're actually revamping it completely, so you'll probably see a new wiki come out next couple of months. But here you can find information on different topics. If you can't find what you're looking for, you can reach out to our amazing support team at support.windward.net, or you can also email them at support@windward.net. And you can go to the store.windward.net, or your authorized user or the authorized administrator can go there to retrieve your license keys. And the store.windward.net is where the license keys can be obtained. And if you want to see a feature or something change it, you can submit it through ideas.windward.net. All right, check and see if there's any questions. There is one. Do I have to use ForEach tags in tables? No, you do not. You can use a ForEach tag outside of a table. It doesn't have to be within a table. And the second part of that question was, do I have to use alt tags with ForEach tags only? No. So that answer is no. You do not have to use alt tags with ForEach tags. You can use alt tags by themselves. So you could set up a template where your ForEach tag is here and connect it to, let me just connect quickly. Okay, so we're connected to the database. First thing you do is connect to the data. Then I'm going to go into the AutoTag, and here you can set up a ForEach tag, assign it the values that you like. Let's go ahead and say employees, all the employees. And then maybe you only want to, this is a letter, so we're going to do the first name, alt tag. Let's do first name, space, tags, alt tag, select it, data tree, last name. And then you could add your content here. And then you would just add an end for each tag. So you don't always have to use alt tags. You don't always have to use ForEach tags within a table. You don't always have to use alt tags within ForEach tags. This is an example of using it, but if I wanted to, I could then do thank you, and then use another alt tag to display a message. Sorry, after iterating through all this other data that you want to display. Great question. Thank you. Sorry about that. Well, thank you for attending. There will be a survey at the end. Please feel free to give me some honest feedback. Anything you can provide to me will be helpful for the next people. I appreciate you all attending and staying. Sorry about the problems at the beginning, but I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.